to WorkOne. This is part of our ongoing online series, Ask an Expert. With me today, I have Bart from DWD. He is the training director, and I'm sorry, I'm speaking in acronyms. DWD is Department of Workforce Development. For those who do not know, understand what that means, or just knew what that meant. But anyway, and I also have Jerry. He is with adult education, also from Department of Workforce Development. Again, if you have any questions or if you have any comments for either of these gentlemen, please type them into the chat box, and we will get to those either as we can or at the end. So I will now give the mic over to Bart.
Hi everyone, nice to be with you. Jerry and I are going to take you through some exciting things going on at DWD and then kind of spider it back into how we might be able to work together even closer in the future to help folks, because the one commonality we have is we often serve a lot of the same people. In speaking with people at the WorkOnes, a lot of them go to the library to file for unemployment, or they go in to look for jobs, or they go in to ask questions because they might not want to come into what is deemed as sometimes the unemployment office, even though we're going to talk about why that's not true. So, welcome to the presentation, and if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them for you. My contact information will be at the end of the presentation. So when you hear WorkOne, what do you think? So we're online, so I can't get a show of hands on who thinks it's the unemployment office or who thinks it's the reemployment office or somewhere in between, but often when I give this presentation live, that's what folks say. They say it's the unemployment office. So it's really not. In fact, we do all of unemployment digitally now. It's no longer done within the offices. So when someone comes in with an unemployment question, they're prompted either to chat with someone at central office on the computer or phone the call center. So if we're not the unemployment office, then what are we? Well, we're about getting people jobs and getting people training in whatever way possible. I want to talk a little bit about stereotypes. And usually I play a game when we do this in person, so you get to avoid that. But a lot of what we deal with every day are stereotypes. The second we get out of bed every morning, we're projecting some sort of stereotype. One of the examples I use is, and don't log off please, I'm a big New England Patriots fan. So when I go ahead and go out in my Tom Brady jersey, people have a stereotype of me that I might not be wanting to convey, but I'm giving it anyway. So when it comes to training and workforce, some of the unique stereotypes, as you can see here, are I think it's kind of shocking to know that nearly 40% of college graduates work jobs that don't require a high school diploma, and nearly 50% work jobs that don't require a college degree, which is not typically what you think of when you think of education and college graduation. So there are 13.1 million more college graduates than there are jobs listing a degree as a requirement. So I think that when we tear down the stereotype, one of the things we look at and we see is just going to college and getting an education isn't the automatic gateway to success that sometimes we think it is. But then there are stereotypes that definitely have some root to them, and this is some of the things that we'll be getting into. So if you don't have a high school diploma, and Jerry will talk a lot more about adult education programs here in a little bit. But if you don't have a high school diploma, it's 9% unemployment and an average of $488 a week for those folks. And if you have one, all of a sudden your salary is jumping up about $200 a week. Your unemployment's dropping. Your unemployment likelihood is dropping down as well. So that comes out to around $10,400 annually that you can make just on average by gaining your high school diploma. So. And then in 2018, which is right around the corner it seems, 55% of jobs will require some kind of post-secondary education within the state of Indiana. So what can WorkOne do? I could tell you all the time what WorkOne can do, and we'll go into a little bit of it, but sometimes it's a little bit easier if someone else who's been through the process can tell you what WorkOne can do for them.
And I really liked those a lot. I was never really bad in school, but I just never really thrived I never really reached my potential. So I dropped out, and that's when I started these adult education classes. And one day, WorkOne representative came in and started talking about that once I get my GED, they can actually help further my education. And that's when I got into the pharmacy technician program. It started out, I had to wait till I was 18 at the time, so that took a couple months to kind of prepare myself. I got into the IUPUI classes. It took about 2.5 months, and then I had to take a final exam to get my license. And it was like it wasn't hard, but I had to work at it to make it easy for me. During that time span, I got another job as a waitress. So I'm doing that right now, but with this license that I received, I actually have a work experience at CVS, like a potential one that's hopefully coming up here soon. I have other potential jobs at big pharmaceutical companies that I'm going to go be interviewing for actually later today. And it's just, WorkOne helped me a lot because, yes, they helped me with my GED and getting those adult education classes, but if someone hadn't come in and told me that I could take that a step further, I probably wouldn't have gone to college and I wouldn't be where I am today. 18 years old, almost 19, finished with getting this pharmacy technician and having a job to start for the rest of my life. Like, I can build a career out of being a pharmacy technician and one day hopefully be a pharmacist. So that's the story.
So that's just one example of a student who has gone through WorkOne and has seen success in it. And that was done about 2 years ago, and since then she's gone to school and is trying to become a pharmacist, just as she said, and she did end up getting those jobs that she talked about within that video that she was interviewing for later that day. So let's talk a little bit about unemployment trends in Indiana. So one of the things you're going to see is by 2025, there'll be 1 million new job openings in Indiana. 66% of those will be replacement jobs from those retiring or leaving the workforce in some way, and 34% of those are going to be new jobs. Our unemployment rate is as low as it's been really since the early part of the 2000s. So what does that mean for us? Well, one of the things it means is we're going to have to find folks that are capable of fitting these jobs, and we're going to have a smaller pool to pull from. So who makes up WorkOne? It's easy to say WorkOne does this, WorkOne does that, but who makes up WorkOne and where can you find them? So they're spread across 12 economic growth regions. And one of the things that's important to note across the state for you guys is when you're sending someone to a WorkOne, each region has different policies. So what might happen in, say, Region 4 might not be the exact same, might not have the exact same policy as, say, a Region 3. So they're not extremely different, but if you have someone come in and say, well, this happened when I went to the WorkOne in South Bend, but it didn't happen when I went to the WorkOne in Terre Haute, it's just important to know that the policies might be a little bit different. The one takeaway from WorkOne that I hope everybody gains from this presentation, if nothing else, is there shouldn't ever be anyone that walks in the door that WorkOne can't help. Whether you've just been the CEO of a company, whether you're looking to get your high school diploma, whether you're employed, underemployed, or unemployed, there's always something there that you should be able to take advantage of. Not to get too far into the weeds, but WorkOnes are the policies and how they operate are defined by regional workforce boards, and there's a link in there for you if you'd like to read a little bit more about kind of who makes up those workforce boards. But they're the ones that drive how those WorkOnes work. So while there's differences in all the regions and in sometimes some of the offices, there are basic things that you're going to see in all the WorkOnes. You're going to see computers with internet access. So if somebody doesn't have internet access and they need to use a computer, they can come at 8 in the morning and they can hang out till 4:30, Monday through Friday if they want the entire day, and use the internet. Fax, copying, and printing, that stuff's expensive, especially when you're trying to look for a job. So if they go into WorkOne, they can do all those things for free. Referrals to community and partner services. Doesn't really say a lot there, so what is that? So let's say someone, for instance, I was working with a customer years ago, and he was ready to get a couple job interviews, but he didn't have a suit. So there was a local charity that folks that were below the poverty line could go to, and he could get a suit for like 75 cents, a dress shirt for $1, those types of things. And they also gave him a haircut for free. So WorkOne can help you find jobs, but we can also be the conduit for whatever someone might need. WorkOnes will have your job search and job boards, a lot of newspaper magazines and things like that, so you don't have to go buy those things or go. It's more of a one-stop shop. You can go pick up the employment section of the help wanted section from local newspapers and things of that nature. Labor market information, which is really a snazzy way of saying who's hiring near me, what jobs are open near me, and what education might I need to get those jobs. Some WorkOnes have job seeker libraries, and some have over-the-shoulder computer assistants. Other things you'll see at the WorkOne is a lot of them have free job fairs for employers, so they host job fairs out of those WorkOnes. So, for instance, I came from Plainfield, and they do job fairs there where they have 10 employers at a time there. So let's talk about more free stuff, because free stuff is good. All WorkOne workshops are free, and they vary by region. Some done online, and most are in person. So these are just a couple. Resume building is probably the most popular, probably because a lot of times you walk into a resume workshop and you come out with something in your hand that you gained from going to that workshop, which is a ready-made resume. Interviewing, financial literacy, training interest, social media help. There's all sorts of things out there. So the images that you see on there are when you might go to your local WorkOne's website. I think there's Region 6 up at the top, which is the Muncie area, and then Region 5, the Anderson WorkOne, which is that's what the event calendar looks like. And as you can see on the bottom, it has all the offices in that area. You can click on one and find out what workshops and events are going on in that area.
Bart, I think one thing, having come and having worked at a WorkOne for over 3 years, I think one of the things that we sometimes forget, and folks are reluctant to do this, make a friend when you visit a WorkOne office, whether it be a case manager, a counselor, maybe even the person who greets you up front. Make sure that the participants, the clients walking in the door, know that we're here to help you. We want to assist you. No question is too stupid, whatever. The WorkOnes do so many different things, and my whole point is you just simply have to ask. Ask for that assistance, and WorkOne will help.
Good point, Jerry. So we're going to talk about our job matching system, which is IndianaCareerConnect.com, and I'm sure some of you have seen Indiana Career Connect commercials. So the one unique thing about Indiana Career Connect is it's free for individuals and employers. There's a resume function in it, but one of the things that makes it, in my opinion, so unique from a software perspective is you can get on a career builder or a monster.com and you have no idea how your resume is being filtered, how it's being seen. Is it keywords? Is it that I signed up for platinum? How many employers have access to it, what kind of employers have access to it. So Indiana Career Connect is kind of work-based. It has a built-in job and personal skills assessment system where so long as you can click boxes on the internet and choose the skills that you have, it lets you control if your resume is being seen. If you self-attest that you have a lot of skills, then employers are going to see you. If you don't do that function, then employers aren't as likely to see your resume in your application. So it really allows you to control the narrative on who sees your resume, how they see it, and what types of jobs would see it. It's free of commission-only jobs, so nobody's going to call you and ask you to meet in an office with no signage out front where they disclose to you that you're going to have to sell vacuum cleaners. And you can post up to 10 different resumes, and one of the tricks of that is anymore in this job market, you need an individual resume for an individual job. The resume that you submit to potentially be an auto mechanic is going to be completely different than one that you submit to work at the library, for instance.
And I might add, Bart, to this, one of the important things that local WorkOnes do, while you have your resume and all your information in Indiana Career Connect, please realize there are folks at the WorkOne, when a job is put into Indiana Career Connect, it's posted by a company, or WorkOne helps an employer put a job into Indiana Career Connect. Realize on the other end, there are case managers and counselors who have clients that they're looking for jobs, and they will point that client to that job or call that employer on the behalf of the client to give them a heads up. Hey, here's a job. Have you considered that? They'll make the contact for you, for the employer.
Yeah, so you have somebody working for you, you probably didn't even know about it. So we talked a lot at the beginning about education and what it means to have your diploma. So there's a lot more that goes on in the WorkOne and DWD outside of simply helping folks find jobs. It's also helping folks find training and helping folks further their education. And Jerry, you're the expert on this, so provide some things that are integral that the adult education arm does with workforce development.
Yeah, several years ago, Bart, we had an adult education student who said, and I think this pretty well sums up adult education in just a sentence, I can't change the past, but adult education has allowed me to change the future, has allowed me to change the future. I love the video that you showed with patients. She talked about steps, and adult education is all about steps and moving forward. We provide all across the state of Indiana free math, reading, writing instruction, as you can see. Our goal is to increase your basic skills. If you do not have a high school diploma or a GED, or in Indiana now it's known as the HSE, high school equivalency, we're there to help, and we provide that free instruction at local programs in communities, at work, in communities close to your home. Also, it's an opportunity, as I said, to earn your high school equivalency if you don't have that, and also to move forward, perhaps to earn an occupational certificate at the same time through a program we call Work Indiana. Work Indiana is short-term training in areas like CNA, Certified Nursing Assistant. You can work to earn your CDLA license to drive the big rigs, medical assisting, welding, etc. Who attends adult education? Adult education is for anyone who is 16 years of age and older, officially out of school or withdrawn from school, who lacks a high school diploma or a high school credential. And it also is for individuals whereby English is not your first language. Very important to know. The other group of folks that we serve are those who do have a high school credential, a high school diploma, who may have been out of school for a while, may want to go to the community college, to a 4-year school. Maybe they simply want to just simply further their training, maybe a short-term 2-month training program. It's been a while since they've taken math, a while since they've used their communication skills, particularly their written. It's a way for us then to bring them back in, get them back up to where they were when they were back in school, and it's easy to forget formulas and grammar rules and everything. So we're here to help them do that.
We have a few questions before you go to the next slide. Let's see. First question is there one-on-one instruction?
There are small classes, and some of the small classes may be 10 and under, 5 and under. Generally, there is not one-on-one instruction. However, if you contact one of our local adult education programs, in many communities we work hand in hand with our literacy groups, and they generally provide one-on-one instruction through volunteers. An example here in the Indianapolis area is a very fine organization called Indy Reads. Our local programs work with Indy Reads. Folks sometimes go to adult education, work with us, and then also work with a program like Indy Reads.
Okay, next question is, do they have to travel to a nearby WorkOne for the help? I think you kind of touched.
Certainly, they're more than welcome to go to a WorkOne to do some of the initial orientation and testing, but there are local adult education programs all across the different regions and all across the state. In fact, we serve, as one of the slides coming up, over 28,000 students. So no, you don't have to go to a local WorkOne. You can go directly to an adult education program.
And a lot of those adult education classes are actually in local public libraries. So, for instance, in Hendricks County, they hold them in both high schools and some of the local public libraries. So there are a lot of different options out there.
Great. Another question we have, is there a minimum reading level required to receive assistance?
No. That is very, from non-readers to those who are reading at a very high level, college level, to reading levels all in between.
Okay.
So,
And then the last question that I have is there help for transportation?
local that differs by area, by region. Some of our local programs do have bus tokens that are available, if I'm not mistaken, to help with transportation where there is public transportation. Many of our programs work very hard, although it's not always possible, to try to keep their community sites close to our students' homes. But no, generally there isn't help with public transportation.
But there is another option is if they're enrolled with WorkOne and with a case manager, a lot of times they can receive gas cards if they meet certain requirements, if it would help get them to school or get them to work. So it's, yes, the help possibility is out there, so it's definitely worth asking about.
Great, thank you.
All righty, three levels, and you asked about earlier about reading. We actually have sort of three buckets here. One is adult basic education, and those really are for folks who have reading, math, and/or language skills at or below the ninth grade level, actually 8.9. And it's designed for adults who do lack competence in reading, writing, speaking, problem solving, at a level necessary to function in society or on the job or just within the family unit. Adult secondary education is a program generally for those students who are somewhere between 9th and 12th grade, have good math skills, good reading skills, but maybe just need some basic brush up. And as I mentioned earlier, English is a second language. This is a program that's growing across the state of Indiana, and not just in states like New York, Florida, California, Texas, and Illinois that have a high migrant population. We're seeing a lot of folks coming through and taking part in our English as a second language program. A lot of figures and that I'm throwing up there at you may be a little difficult to see and sort of figure out there, but let me sort of, if you will, make some sense out of it. As I said a few minutes ago, we served in 2015 over 28,000 students in local adult education programs. Think about that for a second. I believe that's probably larger than the enrollment on the Ball State campus, over 28,000. Program type, I mentioned that adult basic education, the majority of the folks that we work with in adult education, nearly 18,000, are somewhere between 0 and 8.9 as far as a grade level. And look at English as a second language. We're growing. Almost 6,000 students of that 28,000 are English as a second language. A couple other things that I might mention, we receive approximately $22 million in state and federal adult education funding that we use to pay and help local programs provide these services. One of the important things is that it's more than just getting your high school diploma if you don't have that. We want to prepare you for the future. If you look over to follow-up measures, we want you to have a job. We want you to have a career pathway. We want you to go on to further training, and our programs are increasingly working to make sure that those pathways are there and our students are aware of the different avenues and different roads they can take to be successful, like we heard from patients. One of the things that I also want to mention about this chart, if you look at educational gain, we measure through pre-testing and post-testing. When a student comes in to our program, we measure their reading levels to see where they're at. Do we need to work further on reading? Are their math skills maybe a little deficient? Do we need to work there? We then, after a set amount of time, we give them a post-test to see if they have progressed. And it's probably used more to show that student, that participant, the progress that they're making while they're in adult education. In 2015, there you see that 50% of our students moved up at least one or more educational levels. An educational level, sort of getting down in the weeds here, is about 2 grade levels. So that is quite a jump for a person. If you think about when you were back in school, moving in about a 40-hour period, perhaps as many as 2 grade levels, that's quite an achievement. That is quite an achievement.
Oh, before you guys move on, you mentioned English as a second language. I know Bart knows a little bit about Inspire, but we, in case you didn't know, Jerry, that we have now Rosetta Stone. We have level 1 through the Inspire subscription databases too, so that's something that will definitely kind of go hand in hand with your services.
Yes, yes. I might also mention to you, we have programs that the class in itself, the ESL class, the English as a Second Language class, is quite a melting pot from many, many different countries.
Right.
And you have a teacher who may have folks who speak only Spanish, others who may be Chinese. So it's in some communities very varied, if you will.
That's great.
Okay, some performance trends. 28,000 students, as I mentioned. I mentioned English as a second language that we've been talking about. That's a 15% increase over the previous years. Average contact hours, a student stays in adult education just over 80 hours. And as I said, within about 40 hours, they're moving up at least 50% of them, as the earlier slide showed, at least one or more educational levels. Employment, very critical. Our employment, as far as finding participants' jobs and working with the WorkOnes, is up 18% from the previous year.
Yeah, and it's important to note that a lot of those folks have jobs as it is, so employment might not necessarily be their triggers. So that's a pretty good number right there.
And one other thing, we have new legislation in place. We've had providers all across the state of Indiana, and I might add, this coming winter, in January, February, we will hold and are required to hold a competition for the adult education state and federal funds. So that will be an open competition. I wanted to mention that. Make sure that if you're interested or you know folks in the community that might be interested in offering adult education services, that they look for those announcements. We'll have that out probably in December. The competition, the grant will probably be out in January, mid-January, with new providers, new grantees in place, July 1st, 2017.
So how do we circle all this back in together? So something that's unique to the adult education students is the Work Indiana program, which Jerry touched on. So what is it? Well, it offers free training to adult basic education students that results in industry-recognized certifications in high-demand careers. So the reality is not everyone that goes back to school can go back for 2 years, for 4 years, and get a degree. They don't have the time, they don't have the financial capability, they might not have the family situation. So Work Indiana exists for folks that are within the adult education classes, and it's a short-term certification program in demand careers. So when the DWD looks at what careers are needing folks to work in them that pay a good wage, the Work Indiana program will pay for those certifications for those students in there. Plus, you get the free career counseling and the help with job placement that goes along with that, and follow up to make sure you actually like the job that you are in after going through this. So Work Indiana is a really unique program. There are a couple things that are important to note about this program as we go through a few others. One, there's no income requirement on it. So you can make $80,000 a year and still potentially have Work Indiana funding and the things that go along with it. The second one is that you don't necessarily have to not have a high school diploma. You can go to adult education classes, as Jerry mentioned, if you just need remediation, and that would still qualify you for this particular program. So what types of jobs are in there? Like he said, CDLs, CNAs, CNC machining, things of that nature. And the schools that these students go to are ones that everyone's heard, IUPUI, as Patience mentioned, Vincennes, so Ivy Tech, things like that. So it's a really unique program that helps get a lot of folks on the path after education immediately into a successful job. Because of the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, which was signed into legislation recently, we're working even closer with vocational rehabilitation. So some of the things that folks don't know that might exist in the WorkOne for customers that may have disabilities include screen reader magnification software, braille translators, text-to-speech software, adjustable desks, text, telephone, telecommunication devices for the deaf, alternate access and input devices, and larger monitors for folks that might need those things. One of the things that I always point out is that if you're working with someone or you notice someone that might need some of these technologies and you're going to send them to a WorkOne, really good idea is to go ahead and call that WorkOne ahead of time and make sure they have that technology. Some have an extensive cadre of technology. Some might need to bring that technology in. So it's important to note if you see someone that needs it, contact your local WorkOne just to make sure they have it, and if they don't, they can get it. Another program we have is the HIRE program. HIRE stands for Hoosier Initiative for Reentry. So these are folks that have been within the incarceration system. So some of the statistics on incarceration in Indiana, and really nationwide, but in Indiana we're focused on, are somewhat harrowing. 20,000 individuals released from incarceration annually. More than 70% of them are parents. So when these folks are trying to get back out and get back on their feet, their success not only is going to define their lives, but it's going to define some other lives likely around them. Within 3 years, 35% released return to prison, and that number spikes to 60% when they're unemployed. So there's a definite symptom in staying out of incarceration or going back into it when it comes to employment. And it costs us taxpayers $25,000 a year to house one offender in a correctional facility, and employing 500 offenders estimates to save around $4 million annually. So it's a big deal. I mean, it affects not only the folks that are getting out of incarceration, but it also affects everyone that's listening to this as a taxpayer. So who qualifies? Essentially, anyone who displays a positive track record, folks who have participated in any programs within the incarceration system, and some of this is changing such that anyone can be helped. So, even maximum security offenders, those with incarceration violations, those with gang affiliations, those folks can still be helped. So if you have someone that meets these qualifications and might need help, please reach out. Why? Because it works. The 3-month retention percentage on folks that go through our HIRE program, 98%. So the ex-offenders using this program not only are finding jobs, but they're actually keeping those jobs and being successful in them and being promoted in them and having the opportunity to get back on their feet so they can be part of the percentage that doesn't go back into incarceration. And employment is a definite conduit to whether or not you go back or whether or not you're able to stay out of that system.
And if I could just say, having again worked at a WorkOne, one of the more common concerns of clients coming in, particularly if they had some type of offense, some type of record, may have been a very serious offense like a felony. Obviously, barriers to employment. Much more difficult for them to get that opportunity, but they deeply, deeply desire that opportunity. It may take a little bit longer, but also I saw in the last year or two when I was at a local WorkOne, more and more employers willing to take that opportunity to employ folks who may have had a record, who may have made a mistake, but are ready to prove themselves now.
Very good. Very good point. So what are barriers to employment, since Jerry brought them up? These are all the different barriers to employment that exist within the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act legislation. Highlighted is letter D, those with disabilities, including youth or individuals with disabilities, because I think a lot of people think disabilities as A, B, C, D, E, and don't necessarily know what might qualify for that. For instance, someone that is HIV positive would fall under the category of potentially having a disability and thus be able to qualify for some of our programs. So, we'll provide this presentation for you, and you can take a look at those things. But if you hear of somebody just when you're out and they might mention that they have some of these things that might consider a barrier to employment, maybe refer them to a WorkOne, because right there, hey, this is someone that really can get help there, and they're going to be eligible for a lot of different programs. Funding. So how does funding work? That's one of the main questions that we normally get when we do presentations like this. So we figured, why not put it in? So this is as of 2015. So when the new funding levels come out, the PowerPoint will be changed a little bit, but you won't see it deviate probably a whole lot from these numbers. So funding for WorkOne training and supportive services. Supportive services are things like gas cards or child care, for instance. Anything that is potentially a barrier to that person completing their schooling that they're in, completing their training program that they're in, or finding employment. If there's a supportive service to help them out, we try to find whatever that supportive service may be. Not every client that walks through the door is going to be financially eligible. They might be eligible under different barriers, but this is just touching on the financial portion of it. And as you can see, those are the limits. So kind of, for instance, when I'm out at a grocery store and I hear somebody that might be down on their luck and they mention to me, looking for a new job, need to make more money, have a few children, it automatically pops in my head, okay, if they're at this funding level, I don't have to wonder if they're going to be able to go into WorkOne and get that help, and that's a good reference point there. So going back to the beginning when we talked about what is WorkOne, what do you think of WorkOne? And I said a lot of people still have the misnomer that WorkOne is the unemployment office. It can be intimidating walking into what you deem as the unemployment office. So a lot of times you would go to the library to do some of these things because that's a little bit less intimidating of an environment probably. So what kind of tips would you give someone when going in? It's always important to tell them to bring proper identification. You're going to be asked every time you go in to show identification. It's the only time you'll be asked to pull out your wallet. So look at the local WorkOne workshop schedule within, if they're on a library computer or they're looking at a job board or anything on the internet. Look at that workshop schedule and know, hey, you can go in and get a good looking resume, or you can go in and have an interviewing workshop or something like that. Ask to meet with a case manager. They can help everyone. You never know what you can be eligible for unless you actually ask. And folks should know that if they are on public assistance, they'll need that documentation if they go into any type of training program or anything like that. So it might be a good idea to just have that documentation available. And it's self-attestation of any disabilities would be considered a barrier to employment. Our staff is not going to ask questions like that. So if there's something that you think might qualify you for something, it's important to disclose that to the case manager or career counselor. So what does the process look like? So if you're sending someone there and they say, okay, well, what's going to happen? This is kind of a very 10,000-foot view of it, but the first time they go in, they'll kind of be asked, what do you want to do? Do you have any test scores that we can review that show what type of aptitude you have? These are the requirements that you might have. And we'd give them this isn't every WorkOne, but for the one that I was in, we'd give them a research packet that they would go out and see where they might want to go to school, if they might actually like that job, to make sure they're getting into something they want to do. And when they bring that back, at that point, it's the buy-in's there. They understand, hey, this is what I want to do, or hey, this isn't what I want to do. Let's find something else. After that, kind of an in-depth assessment's done. An academic career plan is developed jointly with that individual so they can set their own goals and they're being accountable to themselves. That research packet's turned in, hey, I do want this job. I figured out that this is something I'm interested in. What's the next step? Their enrollment's completed, eligibility sent up for approval, and then if they're going into training, a final meeting is had, a drug test is administered, they'll go to a local facility that does that sort of thing that doesn't go on in the WorkOne. But they're given a drug test to pass. The training approval is sent when those results come back, and then they get their training vouchers to go to school or their supportive services that go along with that. And this process is probably the most intensive one because it's describing a process for a student. If you're just going into WorkOne to go to a workshop and you don't want to meet with a career counselor or do anything like that, that's fine. If you're just going in to look at the job board, that's fine. If you're just going in because you want to work with someone about actually getting a job, not worried about going into training or schooling, that's fine too. I just figured we would put out probably the most intensive looking process and just to give people an idea of what happens when you go in there.
Bart, got a couple questions here.
Cool.
Kind of on that topic. First question, excuse me, do the centers have handouts that list the hours, classes, services, or other information?
Absolutely. Each one does, and then each region has its own individual website which has the schedules for those particular offices in the area.
And then
And if I could add, particularly the schedules for training, at the WorkOne that I was at, quite honestly, we had a lot of computer classes for folks to take advantage of. You do not have to be unemployed to come. You can be gainfully employed, happy with your job, but if you need an Excel class, if you need to learn about LinkedIn, if you need just how to turn on a computer, how to use a mouse, but you're employed, you're happy, you're not looking for another job. It's your tax dollars, it's your money, and it's your WorkOne. You are more than welcome to attend those workshops to help further you in your career or help you more at home. So.
great. And then second question, are there any pre-made promotional materials for library displays or for handouts?
Absolutely. We have a lot of different materials, and if I can have someone, whoever asked that question, if you can go ahead and contact me with the contact information at the end of this presentation, I'll make sure you get that either in electronic or hard copy form if that's needed.
Thank you. Oh, one more question, sorry. Are all students subject to a drug test before they are eligible to receive services?
Absolutely not. The drug test would be for someone that is going into training where we're funding training for them.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. I would advise, though, that even if they go into a job fair or something where they're working with an employer, the employers are likely now going to test them regardless, just that we won't for service. So real quickly over the next couple slides, I just wanted to go through the process of where, if you had someone that might be looking for training assistance, where they might go. So go to in.gov/DWD, and you'll see the little icon that says Career Training and Adult Education. Then you'll click on the IN training, and this is going to be all the training providers and classes that work with the state of Indiana, so they can know that, hey, these programs are available, and these are the places that offer these programs. They'll then click on the IN training portal link. There's also, read-only information if people are interested in the process and what all this is. But if they're just directly searching for training and they just want to see what's out there, click on that training portal. Then they're able to search for training and education programs. So you can go ahead and search by program number, by criteria. You can even by certification, by keywords, whatever's going to get them the information they need. There's a filter for it on this particular website. Or they could search by providers or schools. Let's say that they want to go to something that is tied to Indiana University or tied to something in Indianapolis or Purdue or something of that nature. They can search by those particular providers. So then when they click on there, and I would always have my students, when I was working with them, go in and look at the school and contact the school. This is a great place to find that information. If I want to go to the Dental Assistant School of Indiana, this is a great place to know where it is, who I can call, the number, to find out a little more information and things of that nature. So we talked a lot about what we do. How can we partner further, which is a large part of this webinar. So we've already identified the major thing and how this came together, which is we seem to serve a lot of the same people, even if we don't necessarily think of it at the time. I didn't think of it before I met some of the staff at the state library, and then it kind of hit me upside the head. Oh, you know what? There's a lot of overlap here. So invite WorkOne staff, local WorkOne staff to speak at events, kind of like this webinar, or in person, where there are folks that have a need for this type of information and might not know what WorkOne does and might think it's just the unemployment office. Have a WorkOne bulletin area and or information in the library so they can learn those options. Awesome question about having promotional material, because it segued right into one of the greatest things that can be done, and that's just giving information and letting people run with it on their own. Encourage folks that come in, patrons of the libraries, to register in that Indiana Career Connect. There's a lot you can learn there. And they're going to get something out of it, like attachments with jobs, and having someone like Jerry said in a WorkOne potentially sending their resume to potential employers. If someone's coming in for an unemployment-related reason, refer them to the WorkOne and say, I understand you're saying you're on unemployment. Here's a place you can go that can get help. You can get help to get unemployed, I guess, even though that's not really a word. Reemployed, I guess, is what I should have said. And encourage clients to look into those funding opportunities and look into the free workshops. Look at that IN training website. Look at the workshop calendar to see what might be out there for them. You don't know what you don't know. So go ahead and look at that stuff, and some of it might really trigger, hey, this is something that can really help me. Another thing that everyone can do that's on here right now, follow wherever you're located. Follow your WorkOne that's nearest to you on Twitter. They have Facebook pages as well. But Twitter's one of those things that's a little more new in terms of how people are using it than Facebook. Everybody knows Facebook out there, and quite frankly, it's scary. But follow your local WorkOne on Twitter, and they'll post resume tips, articles linked to job opportunities, job fair information, what's going on at the WorkOne, the workshops. You scroll through your Twitter feed and say, well, I'm not doing anything. I see there's a resume workshop. I guess I can go to that. We might meet someone, we might work with a career counselor, those types of things. So social media is powerful. It's odd, it's creepy, but it's not going away. So let's use it for good things.
One other thing I might mention that we haven't discussed this afternoon, Bart, is a very critical group that use our WorkOne offices often, and that's the men and women who have served in the armed forces. In particular, each office has a local veterans representative to serve our veterans. All you need to do is walk in if you are a veteran, ask to see a veterans representative at a local WorkOne. We also have a disabled veterans representative at most of the offices, and he or she is there to work with our disabled veterans. Again, whole range of services that we've talked about, but specifically geared to they have served our country well, and some services specifically geared to make sure that the transition and what they need is taken care of.
Thanks. Yep. So here's some additional resources for folks if they want to go ahead and look at some of the things that we use when we work with customers to get an idea of what those are. Hoosiers by the Numbers. Hoosiers by the Numbers is for someone that absolutely loves math. If you love numbers, math, statistics, it is a good hangout for you. Not you? Okay. So you can drill down in your town, in your county, in your region, and drill down to what jobs are in there, what education might you need, what's my competition in those areas, what's the outlook for the next several years, what's the outlook the last 5 years, those types of things. And there's also a budgeting tool that I works a lot with young people that I've worked with. They're able to put in their expenses. It's called In Reality, but they put in their expenses, like I pay $500 a month on a car and X amount on gas money, and I kind of want to spend about $300 a month on entertainment, and then all of a sudden it spits out what they might need to make to live in the area they might want to live in, and spiders them out to jobs that make that wage. So a lot of times what young people find out is, boy, I'm spending a whole lot of money on a lot of stuff I probably shouldn't be spending it on. So there's opportunities out there on the Hoosiers by the Numbers to look at that sort of thing. The Hoosier Hot 50, if you're really into looking at videos and things of that nature and learning that way, you get a chance to see the 50 hottest growing jobs in the state of Indiana, and there's videos from folks that do those jobs, and you can research as to whether or not you want to do them and where you might go. TorqueWorks is a tool used within the WorkOnes, and it can be used by a customer at home, but it's a very simple program that allows you just to essentially put in your work history, and it attaches skills to your work history, and then it spits out jobs that you might qualify for that you never thought you would qualify for based on your skill set, and what jobs are in the area in that job cluster that you're in. The Society for Prevention of Teen Suicide, this is an online program. It takes about 3-4 hours. You don't have to do it all at once. You can break it up. It's a national certification, and it just gives you an idea of when folks come in and say certain things or give certain triggers, you have the opportunity to say, hey, this is a person that might need help. It's an effective training. Some of the assessments that we end up using within the WorkOnes, Indiana Career Explorer, you'll hear it referred to as ICE, and that allows career exploration based on kind of what your interests are, what your skill sets are, what your values are, what you want out of a job. It's a great tool for folks that might not necessarily even know what they want to do, and they need some guidance on what their personality might lead them to. The TABE test is the test of adult basic education. I know when Jerry was talking about the assessment they do to determine skill gains, that's the test that they're using, and it just gives us an idea of, is someone ready for school? If not, what do we need to do to get them there? And then what are their skill gains in grade levels? And when they get to a certain grade level, if they don't have their diploma, then we can confidently say, hey, we're going to go ahead and take that test, and we know you're going to pass it. Work Keys, it's a national certification as well. It can be done on the computer or paper and pencil if you really like the old SAT system. Provides a work readiness credential, and it focuses on things that are especially useful in your manufacturing and logistics type of sectors and production type of sectors. So math, reading, locating information, those types of things.
And Bart, it basically tells an employer whether or not this candidate is job ready.
Absolutely, absolutely. And a lot of employers use things like Work Keys to determine whether someone's ready for promotion as well.
Exactly.
The WIN system, it stands for the Worldwide Interactive Network. There's skill assessments and learning modules, particularly the neat ones are the soft skills. So a lot of times employers attest that we just can't find people that have the soft skills we need, showing up to work on time and dressing the right way and saying the right things to customers and doing the right things on the clock. So there's assessments on there that help folks understand what they need to do in certain situations. And I encourage you to reach out and take a look at those and see if take some of those tests.
Bart, got a question for you.
Yeah.
Question, excuse me, said, do local representatives ever do outreach classes or events at locations like a library for community members? For example, a resume class.
See, that's a really good question, and that's how some of this webinar even came to life, is we started talking about what type of partnerships could happen. I know when I worked with the Work Indiana program, I went to the libraries and talked to the students that were in those classes and about what WorkOne can do and help them with things like resumes. But that's where this partnership comes in, reaching out to your local WorkOne and saying, we have folks that have a need for a resume workshop. How about setting something up in our area? Those are certainly things that can happen. That's where this partnership comes in. So that's a really awesome question. So we'll all wrap this up by, we talked about myths and stereotypes and statistics to lead it off, and we kind of have this idea of education that might be different from what the statistics in reality show us. And it shows here that by 2020, the country should see 60% of workers aged 25 to 34 with some sort of college degree attainment. And we circle back and talk about how there are already more college graduates than jobs available for them. So what that ends, we remember it was 13 million beforehand. So while the number of Americans with a bachelor's degree or higher is supposed to jump 19 million, jobs requiring that are only going to increase by 7 million, leaving an additional 12 million college graduates under or unemployed. You tack that on with the 13 million that we talked about at the beginning, and all of a sudden, that's an awful lot of people who have an education level that's really great and they have some awesome skills, but there just aren't the jobs requiring those skills. So it becomes very important to share with folks an honest narrative about what is going to help them get to the place they might be versus what they think is going to be the place that they might be. And that's where WorkOne comes in, and that's where everybody on this webinar at the libraries comes in, is just helping people understand how they can be successful and helping them drive the bus to get them there. And I'll leave you with one more video from a WorkOne student that found some success. And we're actually going to go and we're going to listen to Dakota.
My name's Dakota, and growing up, my parents were...
Oh, no, I'm sorry there. Let's go back. Apologize.
Dakota, and growing up, my parents were they're really like into drugs and crime and stuff, so I kind of grew up in that environment. And when I was 15 years old, I moved out of my mom's house because my dad passed away from a drug overdose when I was 11. I moved out of my mom's house at 15 and ended up just working constantly, so I had to end up dropping out because I couldn't get to school with work. So after I dropped out, I worked and saved up money and stuff to get my own place and get a house. And after I did that, it just occurred to me one day that I should really go back and get my HSE. So I called up the Mooresville HSE and got into classes. And on my first day, I got in there and there was a WorkOne rep in there, and she talked to me about what WorkOne does. And I'd never heard of it before. So she kind of gave me the rundown, and I asked her, what they do and what they help with. And she told me that they'll help me get into a career that I love, and they'll help me, basically make money doing something I want to do. And they can help me get into school, and they even have it so that if you can't, if you're having trouble getting back and forth to classes and stuff, they can give money to help pay for gas and stuff. So I thought that sounded great. So we got together on that, and she helped me through my HSE, and I've obtained that now. And we are now just getting me into college, and I've already started classes studying human services. And she's getting me in a work experience with the Boys and Girls Club. So now I'm going to be working in the Boys and Girls Club while working on a degree for that. And later we have plans to help me get my bachelor's degree to move up in the Boys and Girls Club. So I'm just really grateful that I have the opportunity to meet with WorkOne through my HSE program and just get where I am today. And it's wonderful. It really is.
Oops. Well, sorry about that. Close out of Chrome. Get back here. And if you have questions, there's my contact information. As you can see, that WorkOne can be life-changing for folks, as you saw from patients and you saw there from Dakota. So, it might be something that's life-changing like that, or it might just simply be, I need somebody to help me find a job, or I need somebody to help me get back in school and get my diploma. And we do all that. So hopefully this was informative to you, and please reach out to me if you have any further questions, and certainly you can reach out to Jerry as well, and I'll connect you with him, and just have a great rest of the Wednesday. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Bart, and thank you, Jerry, and thank you all for attending today. Please take note of Bart's email and his phone number. I know a lot of you were interested in getting the promotional materials. I'll leave this up here for a moment. And just as a reminder, you will be getting LEUs for today. Those will be sent to you in about 30 days. Thanks again for joining us today.